رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي امري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي واجعل لي وزيرا من اهلي. Assalamu alaikum. Please listen to this very carefully. I've been sharing linguistic miracles with you before, but this time I'm going to share the same exact verses from three different angles. Previously I was sharing linguistic miracles by showing you the context of the verses. This time I will show you context and two other different angles to look at it. Let me show you first the context, then I'll tell you what the other two angles are, right? What we'll focus on here is the order of mankind and jinn, insi wal jinn, the order of this used in the Qur'an. In different verses, different order has been used. I'm going to show you the wisdom behind those. So let's look at the context of the verses for them. So this first verse is Surah Al-Isra chapter 17 verse 88, which says A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim Qul la in ijtama'atil insu wal jinn. The translation of which is like this: say, O Prophet, if all humans and jinn were to come together to produce the equivalent of this Quran, they could not produce its equal, right? Now here the context is producing something like the Quran. The Quran is eloquence, it's literature, it's knowledge, it's all these things combined together. Now let's look at the Quran itself. Now it was more appropriate that the mankind was mentioned before jinn. The reason being, let me show you from the Quran itself. Surah Ar-Rahman verses number 3 and 4. Khalaqal insan, he created humanity. Allamahul bayan, taught them speech. Allah taught us the bayan, and subhanallah, he taught us eloquence, the way to speak, literature, science, poetry, mathematics, and all these things, knowledge. And it was more appropriate that subhanallah, humans being mentioned before jinn. Subhanallah, look at that, very much context appropriate. Then the next verse I'm going to show you, Surah Naml chapter number 27 verse 17, which says وَحُشِرَ لِسُلَيْمَانَ جُنُودُهُ مِنَ الْجِنِّ وَالْإِنسِ. Solomon's forces of jinns and humans and birds were rallied for him, perfectly organized. Now here jinns are mentioned before humans, and of course you can see that the context is forces. It's like an army, forces. What are forces? Strength, physical strength. Now jinns compared to humans are stronger. You know why? Because again, subhanallah, the Quran itself, chapter numbers 27 verses 38 and 39, Solomon asked, O chiefs, which of you can bring me her throne before they come to me in full submission? One mighty jinn responded, I can bring it to you before you rise from this council of yours, and I'm quite strong. So subhanallah, Quran tells us there is strength in jinn, and thus it was jinns mentioned first. And it's so beautiful, subhanallah. They're mentioning forces, which requires us to mention the words in the right order, right? The forces, jinns are the strongest, then the humans, and the weakest of them the birds. Subhanallah, all three of them mentioned in the right order. And the next verse is Surah Rahman verse 33. Ya ma'ashar al-jinni wal-ins, O assembly of jinn and humans, if you can penetrate beyond the realms of the heavens and the earth, then do so, but you cannot do that, subhanallah, without our authority. Again, the context is that of strength, physical strength, requiring us to penetrate beyond the realms of heavens and earth. Jinns are more capable than human beings, so mentioned first, subhanallah. Now the next verse, Surah Dhariyat verse 51 chapter 50 verse 56 chapter 51, which says, I did not create the jinns and humans except to worship me. Jinns being mentioned first. Why? Because it's the context is that of creation, right? However, subhanallah, where am I going to go? To the Quran again. The Quran says in Surah Hijr chapter number 15 verses 26 and 27, indeed we created man from sounding clay, molded from black mud. And the next verse, as for jinn, we created them earlier from smokeless fire. So they were created before mankind, and thus mentioned before in the context of creation. Subhanallah, can you even stop marveling about the precision, the beautiful word selection of the Quran? And then finally the last surah of the Quran, chapter 114 verse number 6, min al jinnati wan nas, from among jinn and mankind. Why? Again, the context, simple context. I seek refuge in the Lord of mankind, the master of humankind, the God of humankind, from the evil of the lurking whisperer, who whispers into the hearts of mankind, from among jinn and mankind. Who whispers more? Who gives you those thoughts in your mind? You know, human beings can just simply say something and go away, but then the jinn continues to whisper, continues to instill fear, doubts, and all these kind of things in your mind. While you're sitting, standing, everywhere you go, there are jinns that they whisper more than humankind. So subhanallah, again, very context appropriate. So this was the first angle I showed you, subhanallah. In literature, in linguistics, all of these order of jinn and mankind are mentioned very much according to the context. The second angle which we're going to observe it from is already something I've already shown you. I'm just going to state it. What it is that if you go to chapter number 4, Surah Nisa, verse 82, it says, do they not then reflect on the Quran? Had it been from anyone other than Allah, they would have certainly found in it many inconsistencies. So what I've shown you all here is the Quran's word orders of jinn and ins are even consistent with the teachings of the Quran. When it says bringing the Quran forth, the Quran itself says we've taught man bayan. When it says gathering of forces, the Quran itself has shown us that there is strength in jinn, right? We've seen here. When the Quran itself says creation, we created jinn and mankind, it itself says in Surah Al-Hijr, we created the jinns before. Subhanallah. So the first angle it's appropriate from is the context. The second angle these word orders are appropriate from is that they match the teaching of the Quran itself. They do not contradict it. And thirdly, the third angle is only in Surah Nas. I'm going to show you. It's called phonetics, the way it ends, the way poetry works. Look at this. Just observe listen to the sounds. Rabbin nas, malikin nas, ilahin nas, waswasil khannas, sudurin nas, jinnati wan nas, nas. But if I flip it, see. waswasil khannas, sudurin nas, jinnati, nasi wal jinnah. Suddenly the voice changes. The phonetics don't work. So subhanallah, even it's context appropriate, this order of jinnati wan nas, and also with the phonetics, the voice is also smooth. And so you see, subhanallah, all three things work. The order according to the context, the word order according to the teachings of the Quran, there is no contradiction, and according to phonetics. And that's why I've been mentioning that these linguistic miracles, this is just one angle. They're numerical miracles, scientific miracles, and all other angles. The Quran is perfect. Words are chosen and placed in the perfect place. Subhanallah. That's what makes the Quran so, subhanallah, amazingly miraculous. So, and subhanallah, this is what we require, right? Allah has given us the brain to think, to delve into the Quran, to dive into it, and that's why we've been given a brain. Otherwise, what's the use of this brain if we're not supposed to reach guidance with the help of this brain? So may Allah help us reach the level of conviction, help our faith reach the level of conviction. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.